Hi guys, how are you doing? Well, as promised, this is going to be my follow-up for my latest cruise vlog and cruise, which was Allure of the Seas. And this is just going to be the casual, kind of, informal, laid back like I did last time. Just kind of, I wrote some notes I'm going to be referring to. I feel like I'm having camera issues because I'm back in the dining room again and I'm not used to this tripod. Anyway, and I'm getting over a cold. Both my husband and I both got a cold like within a day or two after coming back. So I'm just getting over that, so I know I sound a little funny. So let me just jump right in. Many of you have asked me, and I've already told you this. So we had a great time. I know the last cruise we took, it was kind of like, wasn't loving it. And my husband and I were just like, okay, maybe we've taken too many cruises. And we did take several back-to-back. Like, this is our third one within a year. Not even a year, actually. For those of you who don't know, my husband and I do cruise quite often. We used to live in Florida, so we went more than we do now. But so we've been on, this is either the 12th or like 13th. I kind of actually lost track a little bit. That kind of happens. So some of the early ones, we've kind of lost track a little bit. But anyway, so we do cruise quite a bit. We've been on almost all the major ones except for one or two lines anyway. So we went on Royal Caribbean, Allure of the Seas, first time on that ship. I'd always heard great things about it. I heard a lot of great things from you all. So thank you so much. That kind of eased my mind since we had so many issues the last time with just from, the moment we got out of the cab, pretty much. It was kind of chaos and stuff like that. So we were leaving out of Fort Lauderdale again, and had absolutely no problem, just like it should be the day, you leave. It was great. So like always, we come down the day before. We came down on Saturday. You can fly in the next day, but if you're flying, that's kind of cutting it a little bit close depending on your flight time. So we always just go the day before, spent the night in the same hotel. We stayed at the Renaissance right there at the cruise port. This just goes with all cruise lines and cruising in general, but the first day is always a little chaotic. Everybody trying to figure out how to, where they want to go. Nobody's familiar with the ship yet. So most people, as soon as you get on the ship, what do? You eat. Well, thankfully on Allure and Oasis, but I'm just going to keep saying Allure, there's several options. But at the time, when you first get on, you may not know that though. I'm on Cruise Critic Forum, so I had done a lot of research about this ship. Cabins, for one thing, because it is overwhelming with the cabin choices on this ship. So anyway, I had heard you should just go to Central Park Cafe the first day because it won't be as crowded. They have like salads, make your own, you can make your own kind of salad. They have sandwiches, all that. Well, of course I forgot. We head up to the Windjammer, which is the buffet, and there's like a huge long line. So we come back down to the promenade. We ended up eating at the pizza place, which they absolutely have fantastic pizza there. But of course, me being gluten-free, not that I have to be for those of you that are new to my channel, but I try to avoid wheat. So my very first meal on the cruise, I'm having a piece of pizza. I was trying to stay in check that week, and I did pretty good. I did have some bread here and there and, some cake and whatever. It was my birthday. By the way, thank you for all the birthday wishes. I did celebrate my 40th birthday that week on the cruise, so that was great. So I'm probably going to be jumping around, like I said. I made a few notes, but just wanted to say overall it was fantastic ship. I highly recommend it. Since my husband and I have cruised so much, we have pretty high standards, but yet some things we know not to have, if that makes sense. So it definitely met our expectations, exceeded them in some areas. It was everything I'd always heard it was. So that was fantastic. I'm gonna move on to our cabin. This is where I did the most research, and thankfully, like I said, being a member of Cruise Critic, I could read a lot of things on the forums about cabins. Our first choice, we thought, let's get an inside balcony cabin. Most of the time when my husband and I cruise, we get an ocean balcony, which of course on regular cruise ships, that's all there is a balcony facing the ocean. Well, of course, with Allure and Oasis, you have Central Park, which is new on those Oasis class ships, and you have the Boardwalk. Both of those have interior facing balconies. So I thought, let's do something different. We'll get Central Park. It looks beautiful. Well, the more I started reading, that kind of changed my mind, and then I'd ask my husband about it, ask my mom about it once they were on board, you know, wanting to go. A lot of people said it's extremely quiet, it's very beautiful, but it's extremely quiet, and it's almost no different than being in a hotel atrium. You know, big hotels that have, you know, atriums kind of inside or something similar. That immediately turned me off. I was like, well, I don't want to pay, you know, a decent amount of money and have that view. You know, that's a little boring. I'd almost rather have an ocean balcony. So, and people have asked me if there's many inside cabins on these ships. Not many, not compared to other ships, because these ships are geared towards having a balcony. Whether you have an inside facing balcony or an ocean view balcony, you know, balconies are kind of what they're geared towards. And a lot of ship these days, that's what they're going towards. That's just what people want. And to be honest, I think it's worth the money. It's so much, your experience will be totally different if you get a balcony cabin, because you'll find you can sit out there in the mornings. You know, it's very relaxing, especially on days at sea. You can eat breakfast out there if you want. But the minimum, I would get an ocean view balcony. But anyway, I have a whole video on how I choose cabins and all that. We decided after that then, okay, let's go up a little bit in money and get a boardwalk balcony. Now, of course, the boardwalk is pretty long, so you have, you know, all the way kind of at the end of the ship or the start of it. My goal after a while was I'm gonna get as far back as I can so that I can have still an ocean view. And those of you who have seen my vlog already, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I showed the view from our balcony. It was fantastic. To me, it was the best of both worlds. You had entertainment and things to look at and things like that going on in the boardwalk. We could also watch the Aqua Theater show from our balcony, which was fantastic, because then we didn't have to go down and try to reserve a showtime for that. So that was great. But then I loved being able, you know, wake up in the morning, I can still go out on the balcony and I can see the ocean right there. So that was fantastic. Highly recommend the boardwalk balcony. Another plus to that, again, if you watch my video, is being on Cruise Critic is the only way I would have found out this information. It's kind of like a little hidden gem, hidden secret that not many people know about. On the 11th deck, if you are in a boardwalk balcony, or even if you're an ocean view balcony, on the very aft of the ship, there is basically an open balcony. It's pretty private, not even anybody knows about it. You can go back there, and it's like having the best of both worlds. So it's like having a huge private ocean view balcony, but yet then you still have your boardwalk balcony. And that's only on deck 11, I'm pretty sure. Because if you look at some of the pictures or the footage, you know, from anything online or even from my videos, you will see on the back of both sides, there are balconies, but most of those, one level is actually where you climb up, you know, the rock climbing wall. But most of those are family suites, Aqua Theater suites, I think is what they're called. So anyway, those are private only for those people to have access to. But I was so glad, because I kept kind of changing cabins as it went along. First, you know, I was kind of trying to figure out decks. I didn't want to be too low and it'd be real noisy and on top of everything. So the boardwalk is on deck 6. We were on deck 11. So, but I didn't want to be too high. I mean, like I said, I researched this to death, finding out where it was, you know, the great room. So I first had something reserved on deck 9 and then 10. And when I saw these cabins come open on deck 11 right in a row, I was like, okay, hold those for me. I have a travel agent who is a friend of mine. Hold those cabins for me. And we were lucky enough to get, our cabin was third from the end. So I thought that was fantastic. I mean, they were like premium cabins. They were great. Now you pay a little more for being a boardwalk balcony, but you know, you get a little more view too. So totally love that, would highly recommend that. Now, I did have questions and definitely wanted to touch on, is it noisy there? Now, it's no different in any other cabin if you have a door leading to an ocean view balcony. When you close that door, it has a seal around it for weather purposes, obviously. When you close the handle, you can hear the seal lock in and it kind of blocks out any noise. So it's the same with the Boardwalk Balcony. I'm sure it'd be the same, you know, with the Central Park Balcony. Once we closed the door, it definitely muffled the noise. However, we could still hear things. Now, my parents and my in-laws, who were, you know, right next door to us, they said they couldn't hear anything. I don't know if it's because they're older, we joked, and they, you know, don't hear as well. Or did we just not have a great seal around our door? Because a couple times I was able to open the door. It was hard, but I was able to open the door when it should have been locked. So, you know, regardless, it definitely muffles the noise. Who knows if it was just that door or I have great hearing, I don't know. You could still hear things. It did not keep me from ever going to sleep. But if you're a very light sleeper or you're worried about noise, that is something to take into consideration, because the Aqua Theater shows go on at night. Like, they don't even start till like 9:30. You know, 9:30, some are 10:30. They're only the first 3 nights of the cruise, but there will be activity going on. There's also some activity later on in the week at Rita's Cantina. They'll have music, people will be out in front dancing and so forth. So just to keep that in mind, like I said, it never bothered me enough to where I couldn't go to sleep, but I could still hear it inside the cabin. But it didn't bother me because I had the great ocean view during the day, and we liked being able to just see what was going on, watch people on the rock climbing wall, just watch people going around, you know, people watch during the day. So it wasn't an issue with us at all, but you might want to read some other reviews or take that into consideration. So just kind of staying with the ship itself, it's such a large ship. This could have been a couple of different things, but we did have some pretty major wind going on. We would notice because, you know, on the TV screen in your room, it shows you how many knots you're going, and then if the wind, you know, the angle of the wind and what the wind is as well. We felt little to no movement on the ship. Probably one of the smoothest cruises we've ever had. Now, a lot of that will just be the time of year. I've said that before. The spring and the fall are usually the most windy, and sometimes you'll get you know, more whitecaps. As far as the seas, they were pretty calm in general. I wouldn't say it was definitely totally flat, but they were pretty calm. I'm pretty sensitive to movement. I don't get seasick, but I can tell when the ship's moving. Maybe sometimes at night you would feel it a little bit, but I'm telling you, one of the smoothest ships. I think it was just the size in general. You honestly didn't even feel like you were moving. And I don't know about those of you that have cruised before, but I'm one of those people. It's normally around dinner time or later in the evening when you pull away from whatever port I can always feel like the engines fire up, and like when you're coming away from the dock. Sometimes we would be at dinner during those times. I didn't even feel it. Like, you couldn't even tell that you were moving most of the time, which was fantastic. So I do think a lot of that has to do with the size of the ship. Now, speaking of the size, a lot of people think, you know, oh my gosh, do you realize that there's that many people on the ship? We asked our waiter, and she said max capacity was about 6,300 people. The week we were cruising, they had 57 or 58. I can't remember which. So it was somewhat of a quiet week. A lot of you commented on the vlog that, oh, it doesn't look like hardly anybody's around. That was very early in the morning. Before 9 a.m., hardly anybody's out. So that's a great time to just explore the ship where you don't have a lot of people and noise and activity going on. So those times you saw that it was quiet in the morning. It did not ever feel overwhelming like there's a ton of people. I mean, it's just relevant. You have a bigger ship, you have more people. It felt no different than being on any other size ship because the amount of passengers goes with that size of ship. Does that make sense? So it never did feel like, oh my God, there's, you know, almost 6,000 people on the ship. Never. So that was really great. So there were, I think 7 different areas that ended up saying that you could find places to eat. Now, of course, unfortunately, you usually don't find this out until several days into your cruise once you know you've got familiar with the ship. But just to let you know, breakfast and lunch they always have at the Wipeout Cafe, which will be up on the sports deck. It's in the aft of the ship, so a lot of people don't know about it, you know, back where like the flow riders and the basketball court. So they do serve breakfast and lunch there if you don't want to mess with going to the buffet. Of course, they have the buffet, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Of course, if you want to eat breakfast in the dining room and have like be seated, and you can do that. We did that several mornings because my father-in-law likes to eat in there. You can get like eggs cooked anyway and stuff, but they also had a buffet. So you could get order off the menu and the buffet. You could do either one. So if you want to go have breakfast in the dining room, the Windjammer, the buffet, would be completely fine, not crowded at all, until roughly about 9 to 9:30 every morning. It seems like when the majority of the crowd would get up. Even on days at sea when you're all on the ship, you won't have a problem if you get there before 9 o'clock. Of course, I mentioned Central Park Cafe. That's in Central Park. They have, I think, breakfast and lunch, but maybe only lunch. I'm not sure. Like I said, it was sandwiches, made to order sandwiches. They all already have things you could just pick out, made to order salads, things like that. It was pretty good. We had lunch there one day. On the boardwalk, there's like a hot dog stand with like probably a dozen different kinds of hot dogs you can get. That's no charge. You can just walk up, tell them what you want. Also on the boardwalk in the mornings, they had like a donut and coffee area you could get. That was no charge. People kind of ask me what's no charge and what's not. The Royal Caribbean website has that listed on it. Of course, the specialty restaurants, there's going to be a charge, like Chops and Giovanni's, and there's a couple others. But anyway, most things though on the ship are no charge. There was a few things we noticed were very innovative, you know, as cruise ships grow, and of course Royal Caribbean being one of the biggest innovators of ships that we've seen in the last several years. We noticed over the years in general, ships are going towards the changing kind of the lifeboat drill, the muster drill, that you don't have to wear the life jacket, and most of the time you don't even go outside anymore. You just go to an area. That all depends on the ship you're on, of course. But what I thought was interesting, since we were already in the back of the ship, our location was to go to the Aqua Theater. But we noticed other places around the ship now, you don't even usually have your life jacket in the cabin anymore, because the odds of you being in your cabin should there be an emergency are highly unlikely. So then you'd have to go get your life jacket anyway. I mean, they have others around the ship, but that was kind of the old way of doing it. Well, now you go to your location and they actually have life jackets stored at your location. So should there be an emergency, you always have that printed on your card where your location is. Of course, you do that drill the first day, and they have life jackets there. So I thought that was very innovative, something new you're starting to see, very forward thinking, you know, makes more sense. So I thought that was cool. Another area, a lot of little shops now are starting to just have, almost looks like a card reader, like, you know, you would in a grocery store run your card through, instead of always having to give the card to someone and run it through. Now, a lot of at the bars and stuff, some of them you still give your card, but I know at the pizza place, and like I said, several other places, you just ran your card through. So that was cool. They're starting to do that. What I thought was really impressive on this ship, because I don't know about you guys that have cruised before, but a lot of places where you get your pictures, or you want to go look at your pictures that they've taken, you know, while you're on the ship, it's always a big mess, and you got to try to find your picture and all that. And, you know, it's always like, shouldn't there be a better way of this? Because everything's digital now. Well, they do still print some pictures. So on the back wall, you will see, they'll have it labeled what day it is or whatever. They will still print some. But what I think is cool now, they have all these little, several little kiosks with computers, and you find your pictures on the screen, but they are also, some of them, if not all of them, printed out in a binder. So they have these little rotating binders, and again, it says on your card which number you're in, and you can go and look at them there. So you're not, you know, all bunched up trying to look at these pictures on the wall and stuff. And it's a little more private too. Gives you a little more time to look through everything because they're on the computer. So I thought that was really cool, and I really appreciated that change. So, okay, as far as the food, back to the food again, the quality of food, I would have to say wasn't the worst we ever had, wasn't the best. I actually think, of talking to a couple other people, and my husband and I agreed, we actually thought the food on Freedom of the Seas that we took last November was better than Allure. It was by far better though than the last celebrity cruise we took. But I had said in a previous video, you know, and people that cruise a lot have kind of mentioned as well, that's just the way it goes anymore. Food on a cruise ship is not the quality that it once used to be. Of course, everything's still fresh and all that, but I just don't think it's as tasty, I guess is a word, as it used to be. The buffet was, you know, it was okay. it wasn't like we never found anything to eat, you know, we starved or anything. It just, you know, it was like, it was okay. The service was absolutely outstanding. Of course, they're gonna have some of their best people working on those ships, but it was absolutely everything you would expect and then some. You know, because I had said before, especially on our last Celebrity cruise, it was very disappointing because Celebrity typically has just above and beyond fantastic service. That's kind of what they're known for. But this service was absolutely fantastic. We really loved it. And I've mentioned before, but for those of you, if you're just watching this, Royal Caribbean is by far our favorite cruise line overall. We've been on a couple of great Celebrity cruises where they were kind of inching out Royal Caribbean, but the last one kind of turned us off. And looking back at all of our cruises, we've always had a good time on Royal Caribbean. I always think Royal Caribbean is that great cruise line for everybody. There's definitely lots to do on this ship. You're never bored. They have, you know, the whole sports and entertainment complex. They have, you know, the different shows and the different bars and areas with music. So speaking of shows, their big headliner show is Chicago. We did go see that. I highly recommend to book Chicago online before you go if you can. There will be a day, you know, like usually that first day at sea, where you can book it, but they only show Chicago the first 3 nights. So if you want to see it, you've really got to get in because there's normally 1 show a night, sometimes 2, and they're kind of weird times. So if you want to see that, definitely book it early. It was good. My husband and I aren't into musicals at all, but it was very well put on. The cast was fantastic, so it's a good show to watch, especially if you like musicals. The Aqua Theater is definitely worth seeing. Again, you need to make reservations. And on this ship, you need to make reservations for the big shows like that because obviously there's not enough seating if everybody wanted to go. So I think that's it. I don't really have, I feel like, more to say than that. It was a really great time. We had a great time with family. It sounds like everybody really enjoyed the ship. You know, just everything about it was great. I think the cabin we booked really helped make the trip too, and having that back balcony, just, you know, all of that kind of combined. Like I said, the service was fantastic, so we just really had a great time. This cruise really wasn't about the ports we went to because my husband and I have been to these ports. It was more about the ship, and a lot of times that's how it is for that. We just want to see a new ship. We don't really care about where we're going. We've been, you know, a lot of different places, but we really wanted to see this ship, so I highly recommend it. If you're a first-time cruiser, it may be a tad overwhelming, but yet there's so much to do. Like I said, I highly recommend Royal Caribbean. Just overall, I think you can't go wrong with them. So anyway, if you guys have any other questions, leave me a comment below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Again, thank you all for the birthday wishes. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Bye.